Hello, we're back. It's Tanda
One hour.
and we're here to talk about self-care astrology. Astrology. Where shall we begin? How can you use astrology for self-care?
I mean, just learning anything really in astrology, I think, is an act of self-care because an act of self-exploration, and shadow work is an act of love and self-care. But maybe a house that I would start, well, it depends like what angle you want to tackle from. If you just have a fundamental self-esteem issue, I would look at some of the more personal houses, like the first house, the second house, and think about your relationship to how you see yourself physically, how you see yourself being received in your environment, what contributes to your self-worth. Do you feel like you have more confidence and self-esteem when you achieve things or when you're told things or that sort of stuff? The first house and second house can teach you a lot about that, especially if you have a lot of planets there, because the first house is the self, the appearance, how you show up in your environment. The second house is your own possessions, but it's your self-worth. And a lot of the money that we make correlates to our self-worth. And the second house kind of talks about your relationship to money, your relationship to things you own. If you feel you are worthy of things, then you will have probably more. But if you feel that you're unworthy, then I think you'll struggle to be grateful for what you have and even struggle to get materials. So that will affect your relationship with yourself in that way. You can look at the sixth house because that talks about your daily routines and your health. And maybe a lot of your self-worth or your problems with your self-care is in your daily practice. Do you have good sleep? Are you practicing good boundaries with other people? Do you have a good work-life balance? Do you eat consistently? Are your meals nutritious or nourishing? That sort of thing. It's your habits. And yeah, your daily sort of mundane tasks is the sixth house. You could look at your 12th house because this is the house of the subconscious. And if you start to do shadow work, literally Google shadow work questions and go from there. And you might realize particular styles of questioning are better for you. And they're talking on one area of your life in particular. Follow more questions like that. Think of more questions that are like that. And that will help you uncover maybe what your own issues are. The 12th house is a great place to start with that. So that's a general overview of houses that I would look at if I wanted to.
Yeah, so for me, when it comes to self-care and astrology, I want to differentiate between because you can look at your whole chart and learn things about yourself. But specifically, I want to focus on what are the features, which areas of your chart you can look at, a lot of them that Winnie has already touched upon, that can help you decide and map out and figure out a self-care practice eventually that works for you, as opposed to just general well-being and self-actualization, which just is part and parcel of astrology. So while Linnea started off with the housing, I am going to go with the planetary bodies, because especially if you're a beginner astrologer or you're not an astrologer at all, but you like astrology and you've got your chart pulled up somewhere, generally what we tend to learn is more of our planetary, zodiacal aspects. So like where your moon is, where your sun is, what sign that is in. So that's a really rudimentary place to start. I would start with the moon. So what sign is your moon in, right? Just let's give some sporadic examples.
Leo.
If your moon is in Leo, you would gain a lot in terms of giving yourself affirmations, because Leo is about the ego. Leo thinks that they're the best, and Leo needs to feel that they're the best for them to be. Leos will perform. Leos are good at performing, but how do you keep a performer at their best? You have to feed their ego. You've got to tell them that they're the best. They look the best all the time. They do the best things. And so you would benefit from words of affirmation. And how you can end up mapping out your self-care is, okay, so you understand that words of affirmation works for you because Leo loves to say when it likes things. Leo isn't one to shy away when it doesn't like things. As much as Leo has an ego, Leo loves to tell you when it enjoys a thing, when it enjoys itself, when it enjoys things around it, right? And so how you map that out is like, okay, I need words of affirmation. I need to give those to myself and not just expect that from other people. But then also you evaluate your closest relationships. And are there people that in their love language, they neg you?
Yep.
Because if they do, that's someone who shouldn't be in your close circle, or you need to at least tell them, from here on, for us to maintain a good relationship that feeds me and supports my ego and it supports me, you need to tell me good things. Because if you're keeping around people that are telling you everything wrong that you do and want to one-up you mentally, verbally, or whatever, that is going to affect you just as much even if you're
Yes.
telling yourself that you're a good time, because that's going to get in your own head and that's going to fuck you up.
Yes.
And so that is how I use astrology to map out self-care, because it's like, okay, what do I need to do for myself? And how do I need to structure my environment? So the people within the environment or the places that I'm going to, how can that support my needs based on what I've learned? So that's Leo. If you're a moon in Aries, you might need to process your emotions through exercise. You might be someone who would do really well going to the gym regularly or having a sport that you attend regularly. You go to netball every Wednesday, or even in when you're heightened emotionally, you just go out for a sprint. That could be you. I'm a Taurus moon, and so self-care for me looks like sleeping, it looks like eating, and it looks like a lot of passivity. I think Earth is very passive, so it's just like sitting in it and like letting it ruminate, and until such a time as I decide to do something about it. And because my moon is an Earth sign, there's a practicality to what I need to do, a physicality too. Earth is physical, so when I'm looking at self-care, if you're any Earth moon, you know, Taurus, Capricorn, I'm missing one, Virgo, look at your self-care as something where you do something to your body, giving yourself self-massages, taking your buying massages for yourself, because the Earth is physical. When we're looking at a fire moon, we're looking at activity, we're looking at creativity.
Creativity, creating, especially for Leo moons. I will say, as a Leo moon, you need to have an outlet to create. Even if you have moon in the fifth house, you need to exert yourself. You need to exert your creativity. You probably will need to have one physical hobby. If you prefer slower, more stable movement like yoga, that will benefit Earth placements as well.
For sure.
But even fire signs, if you want to move you do need a physical outlet. I think fire moons, like she was saying, or fire houses, fifth house especially, I would be using physicality to overcome things and transmute energy for self-care. Otherwise you'll die. You'll get stagnant and you'll go nuts and crazy and you'll be irritable and anxious, and that's not something that you want.
So if you're new to astrology, you'll learn where your sun is, your moon is, your Venus, and your Mars. And then the next step is learning what those houses are. Now, the fun thing about astrology, the really, really fun thing, is it's cyclical and it's repeating patterns. And so each house correlates to the exact order and the exact star signs that occur from Aries to Pisces. So first house is Aries, 12th house is Pisces. So once you figure out what sign it's in and what that would mean for your self-care, you like write some things down. So what is the element, and then what is the star sign specifically, and then you go to the corresponding houses. Now the houses, though ruled by a sign, actually correlate to an aspect of the self. So you can then learn about it. I always download the astrological wheel that has what each house has. I just have that favorited on my phone,
or
so that if
Pinterest.
ever, or Pinterest, and you just put that in your little astrology mood board. But what you can do with that is then add layers. And typically, if you're a grown person doing this, you'll already realize that you might have naturally have had an affinity for self-care practices that align with already what your chart is. And so what it does for you is it just validates you, and it makes you feel less like, oh, I'm just trying this out. Now when you go and do things, you're like, I'm doing this from a place of, I know what my needs are, and I know this would meet those needs.
Yes, 100%. It's actually the best. That's why I love astrology, because you can use it to map anything. It can be very validating. It can be a point of discovery. And I think self-love is a never-ending journey, and it's more than just, I love myself. And I think when you look at the houses that contribute to that, you realize that it's multifaceted. So looking at the different houses, even like Tando just said, get the wheel and look at each house and see what you could do self-care in for that house. And if you find that you, on your natal chart, you have a concentration of planets in a particular house, really focus on that house first, what you're drawn to. It helps you retain information when you follow the things that are the most interesting to you. So if you realize that you have a lot of stuff going on in the first house, then you might realize you're somebody that would do well with action and actually touching things and moving things and working on your external in order to help transform your internal. If you have more 12th house energy, 8th house energy, these are more inward houses, introspective, internal life, then maybe you would benefit more from chronicling your dreams and reading into that. You might like to read about psychology, you might like to read about spirituality, and that is also self-care, is entertaining the things that bring you joy and make you challenge yourself mentally or think and grow and stretch and adventure and play with yourself. You can take that either way.
Whichever.
Yeah, anyway.
We're sex positive around here,
For sure.
partner.
It's part of the exploration, it's part of the self-care, I think. So also fifth house, if you have, I was mentioning that earlier, a really good self-care act is sex.
Yeah.
Sex for just the physical exertion of it, like just the getting the release, having fun, playing around. Maybe if you have more eighth house energy, sex could be cathartic for you if it was with somebody you were really bonded with, and you felt it's more than just, oh my god, I really like this person. It's like, I see this person sees me. Then sex might be a genuine form of self-care for you, where you have like a out of body experience, and you'll find that'll rejuvenate you and give you more energy. Sex magic in general could be something that you could use as a self-care ritual. You could use it to rejuvenate yourself, to manifest. That's an act of self-love and self-care.
If you consider yourself to be an intellectual, because I think people don't always think about self-care as an intellectual act in that way, but if you are, then you can, just as you can with the moon, you can use your placements with Mercury to understand how you can nurse your intellect or what way you can approach your work. So say, for example, you are a writer and you like writing, and then you find out that your Mercury is in Virgo like me. Well, Virgo's detail oriented, so you're likely to more lean towards longer pieces of writing and more analytical pieces of writing. Whereas if your Mercury was in Gemini or in the third house, you might benefit from really short, punchy pieces. You could be really good at poetry because it's nice and quick. It's punchy, it's emotional, it's creative, but it's really short. Exactly.
TikToks.
Exactly. So you can look at your Mercury if you're someone who wants to work on your mental, and mental can be creative too. It can be an aspect of creativity. And so it just tells you on how you can approach it. If there's like Leo or fifth house there intellectually. Leo is actually an underrated intellectual sign.
Yes. I think the fire signs are generally.
Yeah, they are. And so let me think what I would do to nurse my intellect if I had Leo. I think following your interests. Leo is not one where you can just do something for the sake of it. You have to have a genuine fucking love. And wherever you see Leo in your chart, let it be a place where you just lean into whatever it is, no matter how you think it appears. Because Leo does not like to be forced to do anything. And Leo likes to play. So if you had any sort of Leo or fifth house Mercury specifically, you can just try doing things that are playful. Even say before you do something important and intellectual, you allow yourself to do a bit of drawing or doodling, or even doodling while you're listening to a lecture, because then you're utilizing that creativity and it can help you let that knowledge seep in.
For sure. Trying to think.
We can go to Venus. Venus is one of my favorite, and I think a classic, like the two classic places to start, I would say, for self-care is Moon and Venus. You'll gain so much from that. Those are more classic. The Mercury I just thought off the top of my head because I'm an intellectual person. I think it's important for me to understand how it works for me in that way so I can maximize my own brain, because if you've watched our 12th house video, there's been struggles there with understanding how it even works for information to get in here and stay there and it then come out. And so, but Venus is a fantastic place to look. So, example, and let's try to think of signs we haven't already spoken about.
Pisces.
If your Venus is in Pisces, your self-care could look like just spending lots of time by yourself.
Foot massages.
Foot massage.
If you know. All the Piscean freaks who are into feet, or Pisces Mars, you are into feet.
Yeah, you could enjoy going for pedicures.
Yeah, or a fit like the fish foot spa where they eat your little dead skins.
Yep.
Yeah.
You would enjoy playing with makeup and playing with different looks, changing your entire aesthetic on a whim, maybe every few months, just because. So you can cycle through all the ideas you've ever had and see what it brings out in you. Because with Pisces, the more you explore, as we talked about in our 12th house video, the more like things come to you.
Yeah,
It's
it gets
through you
quicker. The
trying.
communication with yourself and your higher self or with spirit or whatever gets quicker the more you play. And you have to embody. I think with Piscean energy, if you have a lot of it, if there's something that you want to indulge in, think about what that maybe archetype is or that energy is. Find it in media, find it in music, and feel how that might feel in your body to experience it. And then that's embodying it. Because I think with Piscean energy, it's so ungrounded sometimes, and it easily can have one foot in the higher realms where you're cerebral or higher, and then maybe one foot in the physical just by nature. That's Piscean energy, Neptunian energies like that. You have to ground yourself in your body. And I think the word embodiment comes to mind because it's so spiritual. You can spiritually and intuitively understand an energy or a concept. But then when you embody it, that can be self care because it teaches you how to be in your body. And also, like you were saying, it helps you because Pisces like to contemplate a lot. I feel like it will help the contemplation process of understanding what things mean esoterically and what they mean to you. You'll think about things deeper and they'll come to you quicker if you actually play. So if you're like, I really am obsessed with the vampire character, and you start looking at vampires in movies or music, any sort of media, and you play with looks and dress up as one and kind of cosplay it or act it out or something and be like get really method and go into it. I feel like from that you might have some sort of download or revelation. For all my Pisces friends out there that I've ever known, that's sort of their process is then they go, oh my God, I'm keeping this journal. And I've been dressing up as a vampire and looking at a lot of vampire imagery, but all of a sudden I realized that this has something to do with my dad and my upbringing, da, da, da. And it's just so funny how information will come to a Pisces or a 12th house person. We spoke about that. It comes in a convoluted backdoor way. And so self-care for Pisces probably not look the same as others. And the way that it will end up rewarding you doesn't seem linear. So keep that in mind if you have a lot of that energy and you're too hard on yourself about things not working out. And though you may have tried a lot of different things, maybe just be a little bit more playful or find it in the mundane that you're already doing and make it more magical.
Yes. If you have a water sign Venus, my recommendation in terms of like flowing it out and leading with intuition, because I think sometimes if you're not in a spiritual space and you're still learning, it can sound really convoluted and abstract. But when you have a water Venus or water energy, water sun or whatever, you're so naturally psychic. Firstly, I need you to say that to yourself and accept that because the way information comes to you is really abstract for all water signs, and the way that you flow it out is really it can be abstract to non-water signs. So for example, if you're a water Venus, you might want to, when you're feeling particularly sad or emotional, put a sad song on and cry and be really dramatic about it. That can be self-care for you. A lot of water signs, especially the Scorpio and the Pisceans, get prophetic dreams and get very vivid dreams if they're not prophetic. And so you have a vivid dream and you really liked the aesthetic of the dream. Draw it out, paint it out. And so it's utilizing all of these little psychic downloads that you get that are so normal to you that you probably don't even think they're psychic and you probably don't even think anything of them. But if you're not utilizing that information, if you get flashes of things and you keep smelling something in the air and that is not actually in the room and it's present, and then you just leave that information alone and you don't do anything with that, you're missing out on so much self-exploration and play that could open up so many doors I can't even see for you right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun playing with the different energies. Is there another house we want to touch on?
Aquarius. We haven't touched on Aquarian energy.
Yeah.
If you have an Aquarius Venus or an Aquarius moon, then you might gain a lot by being by yourself and chasing your intellectual pursuits, following whatever your brain lands on, humanitarian causes. You might actually feel really good about yourself when you sign up for that volunteer, when you go protesting, when you go out of your way to help people in your community, when you go out of your way to voice ideas that you have that you think would help a collective. Anything like that would be really rejuvenating for your soul.
Yep. I think studying in a sense as well, for Aquarian energy, just because I've noticed with a lot of Aquarians or people that have high Aquarian energy have a photographic memory, like are able to retain that much information and be like, oh, on page 372 at subsection A at clause da da da, and remember things. I think there's an element of self-study and being able to find people that you can express these big ideas to. That's an act of self-care that might not be considered because we might think we need to be alone a lot when we do self-care, but you can do self-care in community, in a group, with others. And that can rejuvenate a lot of Aquarians, is finding people to sort of info dump on. I think they really like doing that.
Especially if they're their actual friends, because friendship is so important. So if you don't have a really good community and you have Aquarian qualities, then I don't know, you got to go out there and make it, because you will gain so much from friendship
Oh my
groups
God.
as someone with Aquarian energy.
Yes.
And just being around your friends, helping them, enjoying their company, relaxing around them will feed your soul in ways
Yeah.
that I can't even tell you.
Just join an organization or a group. Look, what do you care about? Do you care about conservation, animals? Do you care about particular human issues like children, domestic violence? I don't know. It could be more environmental or more human, like for humans. And just find a group, whatever is accessible around you. And I promise you, your Aquarian placements will take care of the rest.
Yeah.
It will figure itself out. But that's really important for people that have a lot of that energy concentrated in their chart. I would consider that.
Yes. Let me think of what other placements we could look at for self-care. You can look at Jupiter, because if you have luck in a certain area, then I would look at it as like a place that you can gain fun and enjoyment, especially if you're aligning it more with like what you know you would enjoy from your moon and your Venus. If you can somehow incorporate it with your Jupiter. So if you know that you would enjoy doing activities and that's a form of self-care, then looking at what type of activity. So if your Jupiter's in the 8th, then activities relating to spirituality or depth, so psychology, psychiatry, anything like that, then you do classes or things relating to that, studying relating to that, congregating with people relating to that. And so not only are you doing something that helps you because you know it fits those, you know, the moon Venus aspects, but it actually feeds you, because now you're seeing the positive environmental response to you engaging with that thing. Because anywhere Jupiter is, it's like you engage with it and all of a sudden it's like doors are opening. And it's like it leads you in beautiful, magical places that you couldn't have foreseen without entering that.
For sure. I think you could probably look at any planet and be like, there's an element. Because I'm also thinking of Mars now. I'm like, Mars might not be a bad one to look at, especially if you have fire sign energy or Aries energy, even Scorpio energy. Mars can be a really good one to look at, because this will be where you need to discharge energy, because we can hold on to a lot of energy in our day and in our interactions. If we have to deal with a lot of people, if we have to do a lot of tasks, if we spend prolonged amounts of time alone, you might need to discharge energy with other people. You might need to get out of being, if you're sort of Mars is in an isolating way, or a repressing way. So you could have 12th house Mars, and that means that you're probably someone that more avoidant, or if you have a Cancer Mars, you can be avoidant of conflict, and you need to get taken to a certain place where maybe you cry out of frustration before you're confronting a situation. And so you need to find healthy habits that help you discharge that energy, where you don't end up doing the thing that's going to make you hate yourself by going off on someone, doing something impulsive. If you have an impulsive Mars, like a fire Mars, you want to work with maybe your relationship to anger, or your relationship to being overwhelmed with a lot of emotion in the body, because Mars energy is, although it's not like Venus where it talks about sensuality, there's a real physicality to it. It's about motion and moving and driving you. And if you have a repressive Mars placement or any sort of aspect that hinders it, you can feel like you can't express fiery energy that wants to come out of your body, whether it's through a creation of passion, or it's you expressing a boundary, or you having a desire that isn't being met and you're frustrated. So some people have more passive energy and they need to learn how to express themselves, but in a way that is not aggressive. Like they don't have to go to the other extreme. Other people are really extremely aggressive, and they have to learn how to maybe exercise to discharge some of that energy, or do other forms of therapy or whatever. So I think Mars is a good one to look at if you want to look at your relationship to volatile or angry, aggressive, actionable energy within you. I would consider that.
I would like to leave this video mainly focusing on the personal planets, because I actually think we could do a separate video that goes into more asteroids and like deeper aspects of a chart that maybe won't be appropriate for like a beginner, or you don't have to worry about that now. Like the first video is like perfect for your rudimentary astrology knowledge. But I think we could do a part 2 where we can go deeper and more like shadow work based as well. Yeah.
Agreed.
Perfect. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been Tando and Winea.
Yes. Enjoy, like, subscribe, comment, tell us any of the placements that you might have, or anything that you could have related to that we brought up, because we love discussing this thing. And I consider it all field research. So anything you share is valuable, and we will definitely respond in the comments.
See you in the next one.
Bye.